What is up, people, and welcome back to my F1 2017 career mode here at the Spanish Grand Prix for round 5 of what has been an incredible first season. If you have missed any of the first 4 episodes so far, go catch up with the card annotation in the top right hand corner of your screens. You'll also find the whole entire playlist up there as well, so you can go catch up with all of those episodes. But so far there have been 4 different race winners in the first 4 races. Can we make it 5 out of 5 here today? We're just going to have to wait and see. But getting into the practice session for this Spanish Grand Prix, we need to build up the R&D points. No upgrades coming to today's race because we're a little bit short on the research and development points recently. So hopefully we can build them up here today and start to push forward and try to close up to maybe Force India and Williams in terms of the development race. But here we are jumping into the track acclimatization here today, coming down towards the start finish line, getting the purple score, absolutely smashing that, and that's 50 resource points into the bank for us today as we now come around the final corner once again, this time doing the tyre wear management, just about getting the purple score there, but that's another 50 points in the bank, and that's really going to help us in terms of the research and development race. It's coming around the final corner. This time around though, doing the fuel strategy one, and as you can see, we're in the red at the moment. We have 2 temps to spare those. We just slow down as we come across the line, just sort of ease off the throttle. That was just enough, literally just enough to go from the red to the green, and in the end we finished down in 19th position in the practice session. However, like I always say, it doesn't really matter in the practice sessions where we end up in the standing order, because we are focused on other things. And we head into the end of that session. We've actually got a core competency progress of simultaneous development, so that's been fitted to the sort of car on the team, and that means that we can now work on 2 upgrades from the same department at the same time, which is pretty decent. Although at the moment we haven't really had enough resource points to really do that, so we haven't really had the chance to work on, you know, the same like 2 parts of chassis or 2 parts of the powertrain. But we come around the final corner once again, doing this time the qualifying one with a brand new engine. We fitted our new engine to this car because we were lacking in a straight line, because we were running the sort of practice engine that we have been doing in recent races. Then jumping into the race strategy one, having to do the full 5 laps this time around, as unfortunately midway through this on the what would have hopefully been the final lap, we got held up by a McLaren, unfortunately. But that was practice. A lot of resource points gained here today, finishing just ahead of my teammate though in 17th. However, he was on the hard tyres, so there's not really too much to pick from there. But like I always say, it doesn't really matter what happens in the practice sessions as long as we get the resource points to help us upgrade the car. But that is it for practice. Let's head into qualifying.
Today's qualifying session is about to start here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and what a cracker of a session we're expecting it to be. In recent seasons, much talk has been made about tyre wear. Some say it gets in the way of the racing, others say it's always been part of the sport. Are we going to see drivers trying to look after their tyres here, or throw caution to the wind and worry about that when it becomes a problem?
Tyre wear is always something you have to consider to a certain degree. Finding a good car balance that suits the circuit will help prolong the life of the tyre, but it's true that some circuits, such as this one, are more challenging than others. How hard you can push them depends on your strategy and how tight the battle is around you.
It's qualifying time for this Spanish Grand Prix, hoping to get out of Q1 and into the next qualifying sessions as we come around the final corner now, down towards the line. What is the time going to be here today? So 1:22.022, much better than the lap times that we were setting in the practice sessions, mainly because we do have this new engine and we are able to really push it here at this Spanish Grand Prix. And I'm just throwing the car into corners, being a lot more aggressive in the qualifying sessions, because I really struggled in the first couple of rounds, was just a little bit, you know, hesitant through corners. I didn't want to push the car too much, but you can really push these 2017 cars a lot further than you could do in 2016. And there we go, getting into Q2 in 13th place, and being safe by, we would have been safe on our first lap by 0.02 of a second, but good thing we went for the run second time around just to sort of make sure that we got into the Q2 session. But here we go, in towards the final corner once again to start to end our first lap in the second qualifying session. Will this be enough though to get us into Q3? We're just going to have to wait and see as we come across the line, set the fastest lap so far. However, not too many drivers have gone out and set lap times, so that's not really too much to pick from there. But we're through the final corner once again for our second lap here in Q2. So far, 2 attempts up on our previous best lap time. Round the final corner is going to be an improvement here today. Currently just on the verge in P10, and hopefully that will see us through into Q3, and I think it has done at the end of the day. And yes, it has, up into P8, and there we go. For the second race in a row, we are into Q3, and surprisingly, this is a circuit which we really struggled with on F1 2016. So looks like that has been changed quite a bit. Just beating my teammate there by 2,000 of a second. So that just shows how close and how competitive me and my teammate are in this career mode at the moment. But into the final corner once again, this time for my first lap here in Q3. Is it going to be enough though to get us a good qualifying position as we come down across the line? And was the time good enough for? It's a 1:21.533. There we go. That's only 3 thousandths slower than our best time so far in this qualifying entire qualifying session. But through the final corner once again, still currently in P8. Unfortunately, the second lap has not been an improvement. It's only 1/10 faster, or 2/10 faster than my previous best lap time. There is actually rain supposed to be coming in this session. Unfortunately, that lap time not an improvement, so we stay in P8. But the rain was coming down, so that's why we set our lap times a lot earlier. And I decided maybe to go out towards the end of the session, see whether it was good enough to sort of run in the wet conditions anyway with dry tyres and maybe improving it. But unfortunately, it definitely was not. And we decided to abandon that lap, come into the pits, and that was the end of our qualifying session. And there we go, P8 for the Spanish Grand Prix. No penalties this time around to pick from. So for the first time this season, we will be starting in the top 8, which is absolutely fantastic. Nico Hülkenberg, unfortunately for him, qualifying down in P10. A lot slower than the best lap time than he set in Q2 there. So not too sure what happened to Nico Hülkenberg, because his Q2 time would have actually beaten mine and would have dropped me down into 9th place. But you've got to do it in the session. You have to be as quick as you possibly can in every single session. We did it here today, and we managed to finish in P8. And like I said, at a circuit which we have struggled at in the past, I'm really surprised with that result. That's absolutely fantastic. But it is Sebastian Vettel who lines up in pole position. Lewis Hamilton's in 2nd with Valtteri Bottas 3rd. Then it's Kimi Räikkönen 4th. Max Verstappen lines up in 5th with Felipe Massa alongside him on the 3rd row of the grid. Daniel Ricciardo in 7th. I'm alongside him on the 4th row with Kevin Magnussen 9th and Nico Hülkenberg rounding out the top 10. That is it for qualifying though. What can we do from 8th on the grid? Let's find out.
It can be hard for the cars to follow each other closely here due to the dirty air coming off the car in front. So perhaps we're looking at a more strategic Grand Prix, Ant. What do you think on that?
I'm not too sure about that, Crofty. I mean, yes, as you say, it's hard to follow around here, but if you're brave on the brakes, you can get the job done down into turn 1, which is a medium-speed corner, so you have to be committed. And looking down at this grid today, I think we're going to see 1 or 2 drivers making a move from a long way back. Maybe try to force their opponent into a mistake. I don't think this is a race that's going to be purely decided in the pit stops.
So before we get into today's race, let's take a look at the starting grid for the Spanish Grand Prix. It is Sebastian Vettel who lines up in pole position, beating Lewis Hamilton by 2/10 of a second. Great lap there from the Ferrari driver. Lining up on the 2nd row of the grid is Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes and Kimi Räikkönen 4th. Max Verstappen qualified in 5th place with Massa in 6th. Then it's Daniel Ricciardo in 7th. Then it's myself qualifying in the top 10 in 8th place. Max in 9th, Hülkenberg in 10th, Kvyat in 11th, Sergio Perez 12th, Esteban Ocon in 13th, Lance Stroll 14th. Then it's Carlos Sainz in 15th, Alonso in 16th, Verline 17th, Ericsson in 18th, and Romain Grosjean and Stoffel Van Dorn on the final row of the starting grid after both getting penalties for, I'm guessing, changing gearboxes and engine components coming into today's Spanish Grand Prix. But there we are, starting in 8th position for today's race. Absolutely fantastic. Was not expecting to get P8, was expecting maybe to get around the low end of Q2. But looking at the race strategy for today, it's actually expected to rain by the end of the race, which is really interesting. It kind of throws up the strategy, but we will be starting on the soft tyres and just sort of see what we can do as the race goes on. Let's get into, though, today's race for the Spanish Grand Prix as the lights are coming on now. We go to 5 red lights. It is lights out, and away we go for today's race. And it's a great start compared to Daniel Ricciardo and Felipe Massa, squeezing in between both of those drivers. And here we go down in towards turn 1, just taking it nice and easy under braking. Remember, the race is not won on the first lap. No point going straight down the inside or in the middle of any of the drivers down in towards the braking zone of turn 1, so we can just brake our front wing and that'll be the end of the race. But we go round the outside of Felipe Massa down in towards turn 3 as the yellow flag came out down in towards turn 2 there. So I'm not too sure what that was all about. But at the moment, up into P6 for this Spanish Grand Prix, which is absolutely fantastic. right now. So we're now following behind Max Verstappen, and we'll be looking to see whether we can get past the Red Bull driver within the next couple of laps. I doubt I will, and I doubt I will definitely be able to get past the Mercedes and the Ferraris ahead of him. But we'll just wait and see as we have a look at a replay now of what exactly went on at the start. So everybody looks like they get away cleanly down in towards turn 1. There's myself just picking that line straight down the middle. Great start compared to both Daniel Ricciardo and Felipe Massa. There's Nico Hülkenberg actually went side by side me down towards turn 1. We're watching the back of the pack, and it looks like they went 3 wide down in towards turn 2, and that's where the contact was made with Carlos Sainz, unfortunately going for a little bit of a spin there. Well, not a spin, just losing the back end ever so slightly. Now we're going to get a better view of that on board with the Toro Rosso man. So not too bad start there from Carlos Sainz. Better start though from Lance Stroll ahead of him and the McLaren on his right hand side, which I believe was Fernando Alonso. As he goes down in towards turn 1, then the Haas driver puts it in the middle of both Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. So Roman Grosjean, I believe, and there's just a slight amount of contact there with Carlos Sainz and Roman Grosjean's rear left tyre, and that was enough to put Carlos Sainz into a half spin. He had to correct it, and that unfortunately has put him down into 17th place for today's race. We're cutting ahead to lap 4 now. We are on the hunt of Max Verstappen, using the DRS, using the slipstream, and there we go on the right hand side of Max Verstappen, getting the job done down in towards turn 1, the inside line, and Max Verstappen has nothing to fight with through that corner. Great job on the overtake down towards turn 1, and we've taken 5th position in this Spanish Grand Prix. Did not expect that. From a race where I was expecting to be near the back, I am now running in P5, which is absolutely incredible here today. So we're watching on board with Kevin Magnussen at the moment, who's had a big lockup down in towards the final chicane. Has he got brake problems? Is there a problem there for Kevin Magnussen, or was that just a slight error that's going to allow Danny Kvyat to go on the attack of the Danish man? Here we go, down in towards turn 1. Danny Kvyat's right on the tail of Kevin Magnussen, pulls over to the right hand side. It's side by side between two drivers. He gets the job done, and I think once again Kevin Magnussen, yes he has, he's run it very deep down in towards that first corner. That allowed Esteban Ocon to get the job done, and Lance Stroll, and now he has got Sergio Perez all over the back of him. So problems here very early on for the Haas driver of Kevin Magnussen. He seems to get through turn 4 nice and tidy though, so not too bad through there. So maybe the team have fixed the issue. No, they haven't. Look, another big lockup down in towards turn 5. At the moment, really holding up some of these drivers, especially Sergio Perez, who should be a lot higher than he is right now. Big lockup once again though. That's put him into the gravel for Kevin Magnussen. There's a little coming together there between him and the Sauber driver. Another huge lockup for Kevin Magnussen here at the end of lap 5. So he is really, really struggling in this race at the moment. It's not a good day for Kevin Magnussen at the moment in today's race. He is really struggling with those brakes, and maybe it's an engine issue. Maybe he's struggling to turn down the gears and the engine is going a lot faster into the corners than he would like, or it could just be a very simple brake failure. We have heard in real life F1 that the Haas isn't exactly the greatest on the brakes. There's a yellow flag. Looks like there's a car stopped down in towards turn 1. Kevin Magnussen once again, oh, big lockup, nearly goes straight into the side of the car of, I believe that is Danny Kvyat in the Toro Rosso, who's just sort of like parked it down in towards turn 1. Not 100% sure which one it is, but wow, what on earth has happened there between those two drivers? Has Danny Kvyat got the same issue, maybe, as Kevin Magnussen? Well, we're going to find out now. There's a replay of Danny Kvyat. So here we go, down in towards turn 1. He's following in the slipstream of my teammate Nico Hülkenberg down in towards turn 1, side by side between the two drivers. And what happened to Danny Kvyat? He got the job done on Nico Hülkenberg, but look, just locked up going down in towards turn 1, parked it on the runoff area of turn 1, and very nearly had it coming together between him and Kevin Magnussen, with Kevin Magnussen doing exactly the same thing. I think if Danny Kvyat didn't move forward ever so slightly there, they would have had the two drivers going into each other. So we now cut ahead to lap 8 of this Spanish Grand Prix. I've still got Max Verstappen very much on the back of myself. So yes, okay, we are coming into the pits. So it's a bit weird there. No drivers coming around that final corner, but we are into the pit lane for our first pit stop in this Spanish Grand Prix. We've got the Williams of Felipe Massa, I believe, that is coming in behind me. We want a quick pit stop here from the Renault team, and I think it may be a fairly average one at the end of the day. Yes, it is. 3-second stop. Not too bad from the Renault guys, but that we need to improve as the season goes on. Going on to the harder tyres, mainly because the rain is expected at some point later on in the race, and if we can hold out on these hard tyres, we won't have to make another pit stop for the dries, whereas some of the other drivers around us may have to still pit for dry tyres if they've gone onto softs or mediums. This strategy could backfire on us, but it could work really well as we cut to the start of lap 9. Couple of drivers into the pits now, moving us up into P12 for this Spanish Grand Prix. So not too bad at the end of the day, but we do want to get back up into that 5th position that we were running earlier on. Cutting ahead to the end of lap 10 now, on the back of the McLaren of Stoffel van Dorn. So he's holding me up quite a bit at the moment through these last couple of corners. Still a few drivers yet to come into the pits at the moment, so I'm not too sure whereabouts exactly I am going to come out. But Stoffel van Dorn does pull into the pit lane here on the end of lap 10. And now we've got Pascal Wehrlein in that Sauber just ahead of me. Any other drivers into the pits at the moment? I don't think so. And no, there is not. We cut ahead now to the end of lap 11. On the back of Pascal Wehrlein in that Sauber. So close to the back of him going through that chicane. He is still yet to make a pit stop, but he is running on those medium tyres, so maybe he is going the distance in today's race. But putting over to the right-hand side, using DRS, using slipstream, so much quicker in a straight line than the Sauber, with of course the 2016 Ferrari power unit in the back of it. And there we go, job done, down in towards turn 1 and back up into P9. Unfortunately, we do have Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen still ahead of me, so that gamble to go onto the hard tyres has not worked. And now also we are under pressure from the Williams driver of Felipe Massa. Down in towards turn 1, he tries it around the outside, but luckily for me, I'm much better under braking, and we get the job done, holding on to P9 at the moment. The gap though between the two of us, very, very close. 3/10 of a second now, narrowed down to 2/10 of a second. Felipe Massa is hunting us down, but we're so much quicker. We've got great acceleration out of that final chicane down through the final corner. That's giving us enough of a gap so that Felipe Massa goes side by side with us down in towards turn 1, and just like happening right now, he's not able to get the traction, get the grip around the outside of turn 1 to get the move completed, and unfortunately once again just has to hold on to 10th place for this Spanish Grand Prix. But he is still very much on my tail. 4/10 separated between the two of us, now close down to 2/10 of a second, 2.5 of a second. So close right now between myself and Felipe Massa. Down in towards turn 5, running very, very deep at the moment. That's going to give Felipe half a chance through that corner, and with the greater traction from those medium tyres, he gets the job done and unfortunately moves up into 9th position. Unfortunately, we have moved down into P10, but I don't know if you saw momentarily there, the rain has started to come down. The rain should be enough for intermediate tyres very, very soon, so we're going to get a team radio just about now.
We think there's a viable strategy change available to us. Would you like to keep to the current plan or try the new one?
So, Jeff believes that it is now time for the intermediate tyres, and I'm going to stick with him there. I have no reason to go against what Jeff says. The grip is struggling a little bit, but we could still be able to survive on the hard tyres for maybe 1 or 2 more laps. But Jeff thinks it's time to come into the pits for intermediate tyres. We're going to come into the pits for intermediate tyres, even though Felipe Massa decides to stay out for 1 more lap here. So there we go, into the pits for today's Spanish Grand Prix. And what is the time going to be here today from the pit crew? Going on to, of course, the intermediate tyres. We want a quick pit stop, and we want to be as quick as we possibly can on these new tyres. Hopefully, Jeff has not called me in too early, and these tyres are going to be the right ones for the track conditions. 4.2 second stop, unfortunately, there. It wasn't actually a slow pit stop from the crew. It was because I actually forgot to release the clutch and get going once again. So big blunder there from myself. And that's cost me a lot of time, and has put me just ahead of Stoffel van Dorn in 16th place. And going through turn 1, braking really, really early into that corner and still not able to make it, which suggests to me that maybe these tyres are not the ones to be on right now. We just have to wait and see how the rest of the race goes on, but really struggling in these conditions with these intermediate tyres. It's not quite yet time for the wet tyres. So unfortunately, Jeff has kind of stepped the gun here at the Spanish Grand Prix, calling us into the pits maybe 1 or 2 laps early, which could actually really cost us in this race. We're just going to have to wait and see how the rest of it develops. But coming through the final chicane now on lap 17, it seems like the track conditions are starting to come towards us once again, as a few drivers are actually into the pits. So whereabouts is this going to put us in today's race? As Jeff just said there in my ear, that there is actually heavy rain expected in about 15 minutes as well. So the rain is expected to get worse as the race goes on. But unfortunately, we have come out in P12 behind Roman Grosjean, and even more importantly, my teammate Nico Hulkenberg. Not a good call there from Jeff to call me too early onto the intermediate tyres. It's cost me a lot of time here today, but there is still a chance. There's a long way left to go in this race. There is still every opportunity to catch up to Roman Grosjean, Nico Hulkenberg, and maybe get those positions back. So we're now cutting ahead to the end of lap 18 at the moment. Looks like Danny Kvyat has kind of made the wrong call, staying out on those dry tyres for an extra lap there. Now that's put me right on the back of Roman Grosjean, so close there to the gearbox of the Haas driver, nearly actually going straight into the back. Actually, there was a collision between the two of us ever so slightly as I kind of like switched over from the left to the right, but unfortunately, because he was so slow out of that corner and I was just too quick, that has unfortunately lost the chance of being able to go for the overtake on the Haas driver. So unfortunately for us for now, we're going to have to sit in this P10, but we are into the points. That is the good news. We are still in the points at the moment. We cut it to lap 24. And this was actually the pit. This was actually the lap that the team wanted me to come into the pit for a new set of intermediate tyres. Now, I'm not going to do that because, one, the wet tyres, we may be going to the wet tyres later on in the race because the rain is supposed to be getting heavier as the race goes on. And two, if we can hold out on these intermediate tyres till the end, then we could possibly get the jump on the other guys if they have to make a pit stop as well. So we're just going to have to wait and see what Nico Hulkenberg and Roman Grosjean do in this race, whether they go on to another set of intermediate tyres and then a set of wets, or whether they do the same as me, hold out on these intermediate tyres for as long as they possibly can. But it's quite interesting to sort of see in today's Spanish Grand Prix that the different strategies that are being thrown about at the moment. So we cut it now to lap 25, the end of lap 25. The front left is looking slightly worse for wear at 50%, but Nico Hulkenberg is indeed into the pits here today. So he's coming into the pits for a new set of intermediate tyres because it's definitely not wet enough for the full wets. We've already made that error once today of pitting for the wet tyres too early. We are not going to do it once again. And Felipe Massa also into the pits for a new set of intermediate tyres, which bumps us up into P7 at the moment, which is absolutely incredible. 7th place for the Spanish Grand Prix. So much better than what I was expecting coming into today's race. But we need to hold it now here on lap 28. Hold on to these intermediate tyres for as long as we possibly can. 59% worn on the start of lap 29. 4 laps left to go in this race, which suggests to us that we should be able to hold on to these tyres. But it is going to get wetter. It is now starting to get more towards the full wet tyre conditions. We are quite slow around this circuit here on the final lap of the Spanish Grand Prix. 1, because of tyre wear, and 2, because the track is a lot wetter than these intermediate tyres should be running on. But 74% worn on that front right. It's looking really, really bad at the moment, but a great exit, a great purchase out of the penultimate corner has really helped us to get the jump on Felipe Massa and hold on to that position at the moment. But this man, Kimi Räikkönen, is going to be the first driver to win 2 races this season as he comes into the final corner now. 1 corner left to deal with. It is going to be Kimi Räikkönen who wins the Spanish Grand Prix here today. Fantastic result for the Ferrari man. He had a terrible start to the season with that DNF back in Australia, but it looks like he's got it all back together once again with 2 race wins in this season so far. And Ferrari are looking very solid as well. Sebastian Vettel currently running in 2nd place right now. He's just about to cross the line and get 2nd place. There we go. Sebastian Vettel finishing today's race in P2. But the battle continues for 7th place here today. 0.2 of a second separate myself and Felipe Massa as Valtteri Bottas rounds off the podium here today. Can we hold on though to 7th position in today's Spanish Grand Prix? We are going so slow right now, just trying to hold on to this car with the tyre wear and with the really damp conditions here today. Through the last couple of corners, so into the final sector of this Spanish Grand Prix. After 33 laps, there is absolutely nothing separating myself and Felipe Massa. Just about 0.2 of a second between us right now. Into the final chicane then. There'll be no chance for Felipe Massa to get through here unless we make a stupid mistake. Into the final corner though. I think we've got the job done at a track where I was expecting to maybe get into 12th position or something like that. We have got points here today. It is 7th position, which is an absolutely fantastic result. A great race then at today's Spanish Grand Prix. Kimi Räikkönen is the race winner here today with Sebastian Vettel in second. It's Valtteri Bottas who rounds off the podium in P3. Max Verstappen beating the Mercedes driver of Lewis Hamilton. It's not been a good season so far for Hamilton. He finished down in 5th place with Max Verstappen in 4th. Then was Daniel Ricciardo behind both of those in 6th place. Then it was myself finishing in 7th, getting 6 points here today at a circuit where back in F1 2016, we failed to even score a single point. So that is absolutely incredible that we have scored a 7th place here today. My first time of asking at the Spanish Grand Prix. Felipe Massa finishes in 8th with Nico Hülkenberg also scoring points here today, finishing 9th, and Romain Grosjean getting the final championship points in P10. And then looking further down the field, Lance Stroll finishes just outside the points in P11 with Sergio Perez 12th. Carlos Sainz in 13th with Fernando Alonso 14th. Both the Spanish drivers not doing very well at their home Grand Prix. Danny Kvyat finishing in 15th with Esteban Ocon in 16th. Pascal Wehrlein 17th, Van Dorn in 18th, and Kevin Magnussen and Marcus Ericsson both 2 laps down here today. But we did have 20 finishes, which is really nice to see. Drivers' Championship then after 5 rounds of this season, and Sebastian Vettel still leads the way at the moment. The gap between himself and his teammate is now 11 points here today, with Valtteri Bottas 30 points away and Lewis Hamilton 31 points. So it looks like it's very close between the 2 teammates at the moment. That continues with the Red Bull drivers as well. 3 points separating Max Verstappen, who is ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. But we've moved up now to P8 ahead of Felipe Massa and Esteban Ocon. On the same points though as Massa, but that 4th place back in Russia has really helped us to get the 8th position at the moment. And Esteban Ocon is only 5 points away from us as well. But we, however, are only 2 points off of Sergio Perez. So we could possibly be able to take away that 7th position if we get a great race at Monaco. But it's going to be a tough one at the next round in Monaco. Nico Hülkenberg also getting some decent points here today, currently in P11. And finally, the Constructors' Championship. Renault are currently in P5 right now, ahead of Williams Racing by 5 points at the moment. Quite a bit off of Force India, about 6 points separating us at this time of the season. But like I say, good result for both myself and Nico Hülkenberg at the Monaco Grand Prix, and we could possibly overtake Force India and get away with that 4th position. But that is it for today's Spanish Grand Prix. If you have enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to smash like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so for daily Formula 1 content, and don't forget to share this video with your friends and let me know what you thought of it down in the comment section below. But I'll see you next time at the Monaco Grand Prix, the jewel in the F1 calendar. But until then, it's goodbye from me.